Hey guys, Greg Benz here, and this week I want to show you how you can get images from your camera over to your smartphone quickly and easily. Last week I reviewed the new social media photo sharing site Vero, and there was a lot of excitement around that, but a number of you asked me, how do you actually get your images from your camera onto your phone? It's a challenge I know a lot of you face, and some people were under the impression that you could only share with some of these sites if you took the image with your phone. That's not the way that I use Facebook and Flickr and Instagram and all these different social sites. I actually shoot almost all my images with a camera, process it with Photoshop and Lumenzia and all the other tools that I use, and then I sync those photos to my phone so that I have the option to share them with anyone, anytime. I can show people on my phone, I can upload to a site like Vero, I can email them to someone, whatever I need to do. And if you don't already know how to do that, I'm going to show you today how you can quickly do that with an iPhone. And the basic principles here would be very similar for an Android. I use this workflow where I work from Lightroom to the phone, but there's a number of ways you can do it. I'll just show you the basic components of that workflow, and then you can customize it to your needs. So let's first jump into iTunes. And when you have your phone connected to iTunes, you're going to see a default summary screen like this. Just click over to the Photos tab. And this is where you can designate what images will be synced to your iPhone. So make sure you check sync photos, and then this copy photos from, you're going to pick a folder, and that's the parent folder where everything will be synced from. You could choose specific child folders if you click the selected folders, but I just use all folders. And so this way I can create multiple different folders. If we look at my actual folders, this is what I have. I've gone into the iTunes folder on my computer and created this new folder that I just simply call synced photos OK to delete. That ending where I say OK to delete, that's what I put whenever I create duplicates of my images. If it's going to be something that's just a temporary working file or something like this synchronized file, so I know that these are just low resolution JPEG copies of my images. So if I ever have any question, I know that these are perfectly safe to get rid of them. And I put them in the iTunes folder simply because that keeps it out of my view and just simplified with the rest of the iTunes material. But you could put this in any folder you want. But this is the folder that I've designated in iTunes to sync. And then inside of it, I've created multiple different categories of photos. Each of these different categories is going to show up as a different album on my phone. And that's where I'll actually pull the material from in a moment to upload to a site like Vero. So one quick comment within iTunes, when you click the sync button, chances are that the syncing process may take a long time for your phone. I've got the 256 gigabyte model, and it can take well over an hour to sync. So when you first click this, if all you want to do is update the photos on your phone, you don't actually want to back up the phone, this little arrow going over a dot, if you click that icon, what you're doing is telling iTunes to skip the backup portion of the process and just sync all the other changes. So that will let you very quickly update any new photos you have to your phone without having to wait an hour or even 2 hours in some cases to do all of that. So that's a really nice thing to do. Sometimes I find that that button in iTunes can be a little buggy. If it doesn't respond, I just simply restart iTunes, replug in the phone, and try again, and usually that solves the problem. But for the most part, it works pretty well and just is a quick way to synchronize only the images you want. So let's now switch to Lightroom, where we'll set up a publish service to export copies of our images to our hard drive. Specifically, we're going to create copies in that folder that's being synced to the phone. So click on the setup button on the hard drive, and you just need to quickly fill in the options here. I'm just going to call this my iPhone sync. We'll just create it as a new location. We need to tell it where that folder should be. So go click to specific folder, choose, and I'm just going to go, in my case, I like to put it with the rest of my iTunes library. So I'm going to go in here and I'm just going to call this my new phone sync. It could be whatever you want it to be. It really doesn't matter, and it could be anywhere in your hard drive. I just like it to be with the rest of iTunes because it's iTunes related. Hit choose, and then I would uncheck this put in subfolder, so you're just creating the one folder. You can decide whether or not you want to rename your files. I generally like to change it so that I go down to edit, and with the custom settings, I'll put in the title. So the file gets renamed with the title of a given image, which I just find is a lot handier when I'm sharing the images to title them after whatever I call it versus some weird string of numbers from the original file name. I'm not syncing video, so I'm going to turn that off. Under file settings, make sure you use JPEG and sRGB because you're exporting to the web. And then quality can be whatever you think is appropriate. I generally use about 75. The image sizing, you want to downsize to an appropriate size for your images. Now you can create different sync folders. You could create one for Facebook and another one for Vero, whatever you want to do. So you can create different sizes if you want. I, at this point, tend to just export everything at the same size for the different services, simply out of convenience. So oftentimes I'll use something like 1200 or 1600 by the same amount, so it fits within that. Resolution does not matter, but if you want, you can put in 72. Then the output sharpening, I would generally set this to screen to get just a little bit of extra sharpness for the screen. Under the metadata, I would typically use the default options, especially remove location info, unless you specifically explicitly want to share the GPS coordinates where you took your image, which may or may not apply. If you're shooting with a DSLR, most of the time it won't have location info in it, but I just generally want to remove this for my own sake, depending on where I might be shooting and how much I want to share about personal locations that I've been to. So you can click save at this point. You now have a sync folder and you can start putting things into it and it will sync at that root level folder, which is fine. However, the way that I like to work with things is with those subfolders that I showed you. So we're going to create a few more folders. So you can right click on the hard drive and just choose create published folder or create smart folder. The published smart folder will let you do things like pick by the number of stars. So let's go ahead and do this one. And we'll just say that we're going to look for 5-star images. I'm going to name this 5 stars, hit create. Now we have this new folder that was automatically pulling all the images in my catalog that had 5 stars. I could go in, right click, edit it, and continue to add more restrictions so I can go in and start to choose a lot of other aspects of the photo if I want to further narrow this down if I have too many images. So a lot of flexibility to automatically create the collections, or you can manually create your collections, which is what I like to do most of the time. So let's right click, choose create published folder. This is going to be a manually created folder, and let's just call this one water. I'll put water images in it and hit create. So now I have this new blank folder, but I can go up to my images and let's just go ahead and pick some of the images that have water in them, which apparently I like water a lot. We'll just grab these and just click and drag them over to water. I was just command clicking to select multiple images, but now we see those images are here. So we have our root folder, which has nothing in it, and then the folders beneath will be subfolders. So 5 stars has these 27 images and water has these images I've manually created. We could go and add yet another folder. So maybe I just put in seascapes as a new folder. So let's go create a new published folder, call it seascape, hit create, and we're just going to put these images into seascape. So now I have these different folders. What we need to do is now publish these. If we switch over to the Finder or the File Explorer in Windows, you can see there's nothing in here. We've created this folder when we established the syncing, but we haven't yet synced to it. So this is the key process, is going to be go into these folders and click on the publish button. You can see under new photos to publish are all these images. So I'm going to go ahead and shift click all these folders, hit publish, and that's going to export all of the images in all 3 folders in one shot. And this tends to move fairly quickly, but it's just a background process. And we'll switch back over and we can see now I have these subfolders for each of the folders I created. Each one has a file that's been nicely named after the image that was contained there. So if I sync my phone now, I'm going to get these 3 new folders that I can use for social media. Let's go back to Lightroom and let's just say for some reason that the water images were incomplete. I decide that I need to add this one, and this one to that collection. So you can see it's gone up by 3. When I click on the water collection here, there's 3 new ones to be synced. And maybe I decide that I'm no longer in love with a couple of images and I just delete them. And you see those are marked to be deleted. So at this point, none of this has been synced to that folder on my hard drive, but all I have to do is click publish and all that will automatically be taken care of for me. I switch over to the Finder And now under the water images, we have the new set of images that we've exported. So very, very easy to update these export folders. And then all we have to do is go over to iTunes and just hit the sync button to sync to our phone and make sure that we have all those images on the phone. I'm not going to do that here because I've already created a synchronization that I like, but let's jump over to the phone and I'll just quickly show you what that would look like on the phone. So let's now switch over to the phone where I'll show you how I take the images that we synced to it and publish them to a social media site like Vero. So in the Vero app here, we click the plus button to share via camera, gives us access to the camera roll. Click on camera roll and just simply slide down to the appropriate synced folder. I'm going to click on landscape and choose this image of Joshua trees. Hit next. We'll just give it a title in this case. Hit next. Choose who you want to share with. I'm going to share it publicly, also on Facebook and on Twitter. Hit post, and you're done. It was really that simple. And the way that we got here was those setup steps I showed you. Once you've done those, all you have to do is take your images that you've edited, make sure they're in one of the sync folders in Lightroom, either manually dragging it, or if you just have a smart folder, it'll automatically be there. Then just click publish in Lightroom, then sync up your phone. Just go to sync in iTunes to make sure that those images come over to the phone, and now you have access to them on the phone anytime to share them on any social media service. Now, of course, this is a Lightroom iPhone workflow, but there are equivalents no matter what software you use on your laptop, no matter which phone you use. If you have an Android phone, I'm sure there's a very similar equivalent. And I would appreciate if you use something other than what I'm using here and you're happy with what's going on, please comment below. Share your experience with other photographers. I'm sure they'd love to hear from you. I can't demonstrate how the Android workflow works because I've never used an Android phone, but please let others learn from your knowledge. And if you've enjoyed this video, definitely make sure that you click the subscribe button and ring the bell in YouTube so you get notified of the next videos. And I'll see you soon.